Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Today is December 6, 2022. You'll be joining us with our Board of County Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're going to start with an invocation by Anil Singh from the Trinity Methodist Church of Jensen Beach, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I have something very special for everybody. Miss Emily McHugh from the Small Business Development Center at IRSC is a friend of mine. She's also a very talented violinist. She will perform the national anthem and then just a quick medley of holiday songs as a treat as we enter into the holidays. If you would all please stand.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. I do apologize. I was slated to be here next week, but I was so eager to see all of you, I showed up a week early.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. Let's take a breath together and unite in mind, heart, and spirit. Creator of our universe, author of all life, and bestower of all blessings, thank you for the life we have and the life we share. Thank you for this great nation, for our sunny state of Florida, and for our beloved Martin County. And thank you for the dedicated leaders and public servants gathered here, who devote their time, talent, and energy to make our county a better place to live. Loving one, as we celebrate our holy days in our various ways, lead us to regard and treat one another as beloved neighbors. Give us eyes to see your goodness and mercy in each other, whatever our background. And grant us the faith and fortitude to love and care for one another, even in the midst of our differences and disagreements. In this season in which many proclaim peace on earth and goodwill towards all, grant us the courage and compassion to lift up the fallen, to give voice to the voiceless, to feed the hungry and shelter the shivering, and to bless people in need with what they need. May your loving spirit inspire us to strive not only for our own good, and not only for the good of our friends, allies, and supporters, but for the good of all. May your goodness and mercy rain down upon us, every one. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ashley.
Okay. Oh. So if you know any of these songs that I've played, feel free to sing a few of these holiday songs. Okay?
Thank you, Emily, very much. I appreciate your friendship and that you would come this morning to do that for us.
How long you been playing?
Too many decades to count.
I mean, if you think about it, it's rare to hear the national anthem played on the violin, but what a beautiful job. She's played it at, I know that Emily has played at the Met Stadium in Port St. Lucie as well, the national anthem, so thank you very much. Nice way to start the meeting, especially during the month of December. Colleagues, I'd entertain, we have no additional items, no consent polls, and
Approval of the agenda with the consent. Second.
thank you. We have a motion to accept the agenda as presented by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And now we will go directly into public comment. Now, I know that some folks are here for our housing conversation. If I call your name and you would like to speak during public comment, general public comment, you're more than welcome to. If you'd like to hold on, for me to hold your card until we get to that item, we will be taking that item immediately following public comment as our first item of the morning, so it's your choice. For all those that are not familiar with what we do here in terms of public comment, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. You can come here to the podium, tell us your name for the record. There's a little light system up there that'll show you green, yellow, red. At the 2-minute and 45-second point, you'll hear a tone. That doesn't mean you have to stop. That means you have 15 seconds left, sort of just wrap up your comments so we don't stop you in mid-sentence. I know some folks would like to speak longer than 3 minutes. Mr. Donaldson works a little button that stops the mic purely as respect for everyone else that wants to also speak. We try to make it 3 minutes. And also, if you could address your comments to the board or staff as a whole, not signaling out individual commissioners, it keeps it moving along at a better pace. Our first request to speak for is Ms. Bernetta Cook. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous, you're going to do great.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Bernita Cook. I live at 5635 Southeast Green Lane, Stuart, Florida, 34997.
Hold that mic up a little bit for you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. The retaining pond takes 12 days to drain. However, it rains for days. And there was a torrential rainfall like on November the 20th. It turned my home into a lake or runoff into the retention pond. Why would the builders plan to be approved for the development of the retaining pond that is placed less than 5 feet behind my house and elevate above my home? My foundation include the road, the project, and raising causes of flooding. I have included pictures that shows the construction and retaining pond, which clearly shows that my property was level with the existing road before the drain for the project was completed. Clearly, the picture shows that they created my problems. My builders is choosing to replace the dirt that is washed into my yard along with the pond. Rainwater after the flood as a Band-Aid to a bigger problem. I have included pictures such as the work. I work for the county. I earn a little bit of money. I have mold in my house. It damaged my house. I have to get it repaired. My daughter have lupus. I'm living under a condition caused by the developers, and her health. My daughter's health is real bad. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I'm begging you to investigate the matter I'm begging you to investigate the matter and help me to come to a solution that will resolve me in losing my home, which I had in my family for over 4 decades. Thank you.
1 second, ma'am. Commissioner Heatherington?
I just want to comment, Ms. Cook, that Michelle Cullum from our engineering department and Jim Gordon are setting up a meeting this week because we did get your email and the photos from previously. So
Thank
they
you.
will be in contact and we'll be following up with it.
I appreciate it, ma'am. Thank you so much, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next request to speak form is Miss Linda Fithian.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's nice to see you all, and thank you for what you do. I wrote all of you a letter. You probably have it in your mailbox this morning, but I wanted to read the letter to you. So I'm just going to read the letter and then make a comment after I do. I write to ask that you not approve the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee report to Martin County Board of County Commissioners SHIP Affordable Housing Incentive Strategies. You will be asked to approve this document at your 12/13/22 meeting. I refer specifically to the flexible density section on page 5 of the report. The staff advised the AHAC that increased density offers economic incentive by selling or renting a larger number of units to offset the lower sale price or rent level charged for each affordable unit, and that this may be applicable to multifamily rental rather than to single-family subdivision. So I ask, economic incentive to who? And does that benefit the community and the population currently here? In the report, the way that these flexible densities could be implemented is in high-density areas under policy 4.13A.7, 15 units instead of 10 could be approved, and in medium-density areas under policy 4.13A.7, 10 units instead of 8 units per acre could be approved. This is also applicable to the commercial office residential areas that allow 10 units per acre to receive density bonus. And a provision applicable to the community development areas allows a unit of 800 square feet or less to count as half unit for density calculation purposes. So that's double the occupancy if builders build something that's 800 square feet or less. So again, I ask, does the community really benefit by increasing our density per acre to allow all of these multifamily units to be built? Who really benefits from that? Most people like to have a decent amount of square footage where they live, and 800, 600 square feet seems to be a little inadequate to me, especially for families. So please, I request that the portion of that report be excluded before you approve it. And I thank you for listening. Sincerely, Linda Fithian. Okay. So thank you, Commissioners. I really do hope, I know we're having a full conversation this morning about affordable housing, but this report is for your approval, and I do hope that you look at that section and don't approve it with that section. I think we should be helping more of our community members, such as the person who spoke before me, who is having issues. I would think the community would certainly like that.
Thank you. Our next request to speak form is Miss Angela Hoffman. Welcome.
Challenge this morning, exercising my video arm. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Angela Hoffman. This is Gina Masters from the Stuart Martin County Chamber of Commerce. And we're here this morning to thank each of you for the conversations and considerations you've already given to workforce housing in Martin County. We encourage you to continue to explore ways that Martin County and its government, private, nonprofit partners can work together to chip away at the workforce housing deficit here in Martin County. Our employers have identified housing as a major barrier to finding and retaining employees in every industry, from hospitality to manufacturing and everything in between. Our Workforce Development Department, Career Connect Martin, works with upskilling individuals and placing them in on-the-job training opportunities right here in Martin County to benefit Martin County businesses. Although it's been a success in helping individuals get the training they need to start on new career paths and higher wages, rent still seems to be the hardest barrier for them to overcome. With your consideration and the creativity of the amazing professionals within this administration building and the committees that you've already appointed to take on this issue, we're confident that we can all work together to make tremendous strides in workforce housing. Please continue to prioritize your time, talent, and assets in stewarding this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Both of you. Our next request to speak for him is Mr. Pat Arena. Mr. Arena, good morning.
Commissioners, Pat Arena, Johnson Beach. This is a recap on Lot 91 in Sugar Hill. It's the last and only piece of property that was declared a wetland. The question is, why did it become a wetland? No other lot in that area, especially the adjacent lots, were not wetlands. It was because there was no swales put between the two adjacent lots, if I may. You can see on the right, the extreme right is Lot 91, and the two next to it. The yellow is the same elevation on the topography maps, and it clearly shows that water is draining off from those two lots into Lot 91, causing erosion and making it a wetlands. Now, this is a Martin County requirement. These people got COs without this swale. And that was done on District 1's watch. I pulled the original historic permit from the South Florida Water Management District. And this is the state giving Martin County permission to issue building permits. It's very clear in here, your instructions. It says, "A measure shall be taken to prevent erosion from occurring in the side lot swales by the use of ditch checks or other suitable means." It was not done. That piece of property became wetlands because those two lots received their CO without the swales. I built in 2001, and Martin County put me through hell to make sure not a drop of water would go from my property to the adjacent property. What happened 2003, 2006? Where was the building department? Where was the district? I called my district's office, and it was too bad, so sad. It cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and in 10 years, too bad. I called District 4. Does anybody have here some compassion and common sense? What happened here? This piece of property became wetlands because of Martin County negligence. Please, Sarah, give me a call, sit down, and tell me there's nothing you can do. But tell me if there's nothing you could do. There's got to be a way of special dispensation because Martin County is responsible for what happened on Lot 91. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Mr. Arena, we'll have someone from our county staff. I know you've been here in the past. We'll have someone from our county staff reach out to you and have a conversation with you. Our next request to speak for him is Mr. Nick Blunt. You want to hold on? Thank you, sir. Or how about Jacqueline Bayless? Good morning and welcome.
Morning, Commissioners, Chairman. My name is Jacqueline Bayless, and I'm a practicing landscape architect who recently moved here a couple months ago. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Do I need to repeat that?
Maybe.
So my name is Jacqueline Bayless, and I'm a practicing landscape architect who moved here very recently for a new employment opportunity. Back in 2013, I learned the importance of a walkable community, and I always made it a goal of mine to live in one. I was dumbfounded with how a simple concept of walking can improve health benefits, longer lifespans, mental health, reducing crime, reducing traffic impacts, carbon footprint, increases social interaction, lowers heart disease, the list goes on. I knew finding a walkable community in Florida would be a challenge because the infrastructure just isn't built this way. The public transportation isn't socially acceptable, but despite all of my challenges, I've been able to do so. I lived in Gainesville, Tampa, St. Pete, West Palm, Miami Beach, where I've been able to attain this walkable lifestyle. That stopped here. My search for a new living accommodation in Martin County was harder than ever. I would be putting myself, with rents the way they are, I'd be putting myself living in a paycheck to paycheck situation and not leaving myself room for financial growth. On the other hand, there was a plethora of living accommodations, but I was discriminated against, simply based on age. I'm 17 years shy of being 55. I've even contemplated buying a vacant land and building a tiny home, but unfortunately, code does not allow that. I look forward to being part of the solution to this problem and working in Martin County, and in the future, hopefully becoming a resident of Martin County. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you'll stay for the conversation we're going to have next. Thank you. The rest of our request to speak form have housing listed and the agenda item listed. Is anyone, and then Ms. Fithian, you sent me another request to speak form. Is that on a separate time? Okay, so I'll give it both. Thank you. So is anyone else like to address us on a general topic or an item that we would be discussing later in the day that you won't be able to be here for? Ms. Creech, please. I thought yours said.
Hi, my name is Audra Creech. I apologize for having to do the general session instead of the housing. Unfortunately, I've got a 10 a.m. phone call. But I'm an attorney. I grew up here. I'm fourth generation Martin County and seventh generation Floridian. My father is a civil engineer in this county as well as a surveyor. So is my mother, a civil engineer. I grew up in West Palm City, larger lots, and tried, as I came into my own as a young professional, to find a place to live here. That was very much not possible, even for someone who's making $100,000 a year or more. It's just simply not doable. This is an issue that I had with my sister as well. My parents actually had to buy her house, and then they had to do some LLC-oriented stuff to make it doable. And she has 2 children, and she's not making as much as I am. But I'm not willing to cause my parents to buy my house as a fully functioning young professional just because there is simply not enough housing for people, as stated before, not over 55. Additionally, there is not enough housing for people that don't make $100,000 a year. I mean, I don't know about many people, but I had to go to a lot of schooling to get that amount in Martin County, much less the people that are nurses, much less the people that are mechanics, much less the people that are plumbers, electricians, etc. These people we need them, period. So if we don't have a place to house them or a place for them to be here, then it's not going to work. They're not going to come here. You can't pay them enough money. It's just not going to be sustainable. I'm not going to be able to go change your carburetor. I don't have that skill set. But we do need those people, period, end of story. And so if people like me can't afford it and can't deal with getting something that is viable, then how are other people going to do it? And as much as I understand that most families want a little bit of room, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And it's unfortunate, but I'd much rather have a roof over that family's head where they can actually go to decent schools, where they can actually have the chance to be in Martin County, than have no place for them at all. 800 square feet is not maybe the biggest place ever, but if you don't have another option other than being homeless, but you want to stay in Martin County, well, you'll take the 100 square feet and be glad of it, because at least you can be in Martin County, at least you can be here and take advantage of any growth, business growth that may have occurred. Like, I'm so glad we had a landscape architect that's actually brought into Stuart, because back in the day, there was no chance for that. You either grew up here and maybe could find a place to work or not. But I had to go to Boca. I had to go to Miami. I had to go to various other places to get work and commute from Stuart because I could not find the
level of income necessary to buy my own house. I'm living with my parents, just FYI. So please consider this affordable housing as an option to bring people here.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else like to speak before we go through the rest of the agenda? Commissioner Smith, we'll start with you for commissioner comments, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight is one of my favorite nights of the year in Jensen Beach. It is Taste of Jensen. We will do our Christmas tree lighting at about 5:45 till 6. Taste of Jensen will go 6 o'clock until you run out of space to eat. It's a fantastic evening. It's a really great time to see a bunch of people that you don't run into on a daily basis, and we have a really good time. So if you're out and about and you have nothing to do on a Tuesday night, come on down to Jensen. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Commissioner Heatherington.
I would just acknowledge something that was on the consent agenda this morning. Tyler Dye reached Eagle Scout, so we did acknowledge him this morning on the consent agenda. He couldn't be here this morning. His mother, Judy Dye, has been always a Cub Scout director, even one of our directors of both of my kids as they were little tykes. So congratulations, that is a significant achievement, and I certainly think that that should be brought to everyone's attention. So congratulations, Tyler Dye and family.
Very nice. That's very nice. Commissioner Jenkins.
I just want to, this weekend was parade weekend. We did 3 parades, which was absolutely exhausting. But just to acknowledge everybody that put those parades together. They knocked it out of the park this year and was hugely attended. Mr. Donaldson and I were trying to guess how many people were in downtown Stewart, and it was absolutely amazing. So I just want to acknowledge the people that work so hard to put those events together. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, and I have a request this morning. As you probably know, parking in downtown Port Salerno is problematic. It's very popular. The restaurants are very, very popular. There's inadequate parking. However, there is some right-of-way that is possible for parking, and that's FEC right-of-way. I know that we applied for some down in Hobe Sound some years ago, and also more on this later, Port Salerno is poised for some changes that are going to make parking even more problematic. So I would ask that we initiate an application to FEC in order to consider leasing FEC right-of-way in Port Salerno for parking. The initial application is $3,000.
Will that be coming from your district funds?
I think the TIF funds should probably cover it.
Okay, I'm just asking. So
Either way works for me.
okay. Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Wow, that's good.
Well, I'll say.
Like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I would have obviously as well. So that's the Commissioner Smith.
Sarah, has the NAC or the CRA talked about this, and do they have an opinion on it, on what their global sort of strategy is?
Don't know. Perhaps Mr. Stokas can inform us.
Mr. Chair, George Stoke, Assistant County Administrator. So the NAC has a meeting on December 8th where they'll begin to talk about that. I think they've had general conversations about parking and trying where they want to go as a community. So we haven't gotten specific to FEC right-of-way, but I'm sure that will be discussed on December 8th from the NAC.
I'm not opposed to it at all. I would like it to kind of kick through that process to make sure that comprehensively whatever the next strategy seems to be it fits in. And I'm sure that it's probably part of the strategy, but I think it would be helpful if they came to us with a more comprehensive, say, look, this is phase 1, 2, and 3 of things we need to do. Sarah, I agree. I mean, parking is always going to be a challenge there. So anyway, just food for thought.
Thank you. Commissioner Hurd, I agree with you. All of us have been down there before. The constricted area, I've been there trying to loop around and drive up and down the side streets, and then I think it would actually be a benefit for the existing residents that live there if you can create some actual official parking versus people getting creative parking wherever they can find a spot. Because if your intention is to go to Port Salerno, you're going to Port Salerno. If you're going for dinner or one of their nice shops, you're just going to find a place to park. So I agree. Commissioner Smith's not wrong. If it starts with us and then goes to the NAC, you've shaved off a lot of time versus starting there and coming back. We've already given them our support. So we have a motion by Commissioner Hurd for putting in an application to the FEC for leasing some right-of-way for additional public parking. It was seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, that's it.
Anything else? Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Microphone.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just wanted to congratulate our Utilities Department and along with assistance from our Legal Department and financial folks for Utilities received a AA+ rating from Fitch this last week for their financial security. That's also to congratulate yourselves on the support of a well-run utility and financially secured system. And I just wanted to thank the team that participated in that, which includes our Micah, our utility, and Jennifer Manning and Stephanie, and of course our county attorney, who is always integrated in with these, and along with our financial team, Jay Glover and the others that support us in these activities. So that was excellent news this week.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Ms. Woods? Nothing? Thank you. I'll yield my comments because I'm very excited about the next conversation we're about to have. It's going to be departmental item number 3, affordable housing discussion. Before Mr. Stokes, you begin, let me just sort of tee it up if you don't mind. This is a conversation that we have been having over the last several months. It started, Commissioner Smith, is this a new light?
That was a light for the prior conversation that's passed.
I have to pay more attention to these lights. I apologize. I bring them. I'm sorry.
All right.
You have a credit.
Great.
You have a couple-minute credit. Affordable housing scares some people. The word affordable housing, the term scares people. They think it's some kind of projects and something like that. I want the conversation, and I know the people, a lot of them are leaders in the community, not just in multiple facets, but in this particular one, we're going to hear, we did during public comment, from some real-life examples. I have my own family real-life examples to share. I'm sure most of our board members do. I know our staff does, the community does. There has been some criticism that all we will do is have conversation and not accomplish anything. Last week, when my colleagues were nice enough to afford me the opportunity to be chair, I said I would use this center chair for as much as I could during the year to really drive this point home. There are a lot of conversations happening in the community from different facets. I like to make it sort of the analogy of we're all individual professional baseball teams, and everyone is trying to do the best that they can and be successful. But this effort has to be like an all-star team. It literally has to take our communities, instead of everyone heading off in a different direction, which will not work. It'll have small success, but it won't have universal success. And I know my colleagues, I hope and believe that my colleagues are hearing the same things that I'm hearing, and hopefully they're not living through the same things that I'm living through with my 20, ma'am, like you said, ma'am, miss. You don't want to be a ma'am yet. If you're that far away from 55, you're still a miss. My children were born and raised here as well, and one of them would like very much to live in the community that she got a job here. She can afford, a reasonable, modest rent. But one, there's either nothing to be had. Two, the ones that are available are too expensive, even with parental help. And I don't want to be helping financially. Many families can't be helping financially. And so what do we tell her? And then other family members that are on the other side of life spectrum that have 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. But they're older. Some are widowed. They don't need to go into nursing homes because they're healthy, as well as the fact that nursing homes and assisted living is also expensive. So they're forced to stay in their much larger homes, alone in many cases, so that house does not cycle back into the inventory for a younger family. The other concern that I always hear is that all we're doing is enabling people to move here from somewhere else. That's not really the case, because if we are going to somehow block our future residents from coming here, we're also blocking our current residents from staying here. So I look very much forward to this conversation. What I'd want to just say right up front from my perspective is that not every single option is on the table right off the bat. Last week I spoke about the analogy of a fruit tree, an apple tree. In an effort to be afraid of that really controversial, difficult to attain strategies that are at the top of the apple tree, doesn't mean we're not going to pick the low fruit, the tiny homes and the accessory dwelling units and getting creative. Everyone has relatives or friends or coworkers that live somewhere else. This is happening very successfully all over the state of Florida, in tiny counties and in massive counties. It's happening all over the United States. If you travel or have relatives, or you listen to national radio stations, the conversation is everywhere. And there are a lot of very clever ideas that won't be as dramatically obtrusive as some residents might fear. So with that, Mr. Stokas, I appreciate you have been working behind the scenes for quite a while, meeting with some of our stakeholders. I look forward to hearing what you've come up with thus far.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Again, my presentation is merely to kick off the conversation. It does not provide, it's not a comprehensive, exhaustive list of solutions. I like to start out by really where everyone's at the same level or the same floor, the same game, and that is by defining what exactly affordable housing is. And according to Florida, I'm not going to read every slide to you guys, but according to Florida State statute, defines affordable housing as housing for which monthly rents or mortgage payments, including taxes, insurance, and utilities, do not exceed 30% of that amount, which represents the percentage of median adjusted gross annual income for households or persons indicated, and it goes into the Florida State statute. Our own comprehensive plan defines affordable housing at 120% of area median income. And in our comp plan, workforce housing is defined at 140%. And I know those are all great numbers, but what does that actually mean? And this is the table that everyone hates in my presentation, because right here, if you can see, for a family of four at 120%, that family cannot exceed an income level of $96,000. For workforce housing, same family of four, that income level for the family cannot exceed $112,000. The area median income, median is $84,500 for our county, actually for our metropolitan statistical area, which is the Port St. Lucie MSA. The scale, as you start to go upward, you get into percentage of categories. Many not-for-profits, many state programs, many federal programs, family of four, income can't exceed $64,000. And then you start getting into very low income and very low income, where a family of four may not exceed an income level of $24,000 at the 30% category. And I'll be more than happy to bring this back, but also in this table are where federal and state programs limit rent and the amount of money they're willing to pay rent, and we're going to get into that in a little bit later.
Mr. Stokas, just to clarify, when you say family income, 64,000 and higher numbers, that sounds like a lot of money if you're thinking about two people making 64,000. We're talking about two people making $32,000 a year.
Yes, I'm sorry, that'd be totaling.
I knew you meant it. I just want some people to understand. They're like, wow, that's a lot of money. We're talking hopefully two household income earners, if not also the children.
Correct, sir. Under the affordable, currently, the county has an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, which you heard about in public comment. There's 11 members. They meet bi-monthly. They recommend specific actions or initiatives that relate to housing. They currently, one of their ongoing duties is to evaluate incentives that are contained within the local housing Local Housing Incentive Plan, or the LHAP. They monitor projects that SHIP, which is State Housing Initiative Program, funds are used for, also known as, I believe, the Wadowski Fund, if you hear that quite a bit on the in the news. And they annually review the county's established policies and procedures, which you will be hearing about under their in your December 13th meeting. That will bring that strategy back to you, and I think we can go into furthermore what you heard from public comment. So. For staff, I wanted to get right into some existing programs as it relates to home ownership. When you're tackling this issue, there's home ownership and then there's rental. Under home ownership, this is what the county currently does. And you have a state housing initiative program of $1.5 million. You have a community development block grant fund. Of course, that's pending an award of $750,000. Home funds of $174,000. And these are the allowed uses. It's for first-time homebuyer down payment assistance, helps to rehab homes or harden them for storms, keeping people within their homes, water and sewer hookup. If you meet an income level and water and sewer is being brought in front of your house, there are ways, depending on income, we can hook your house up to those services. And then the final would be demolition and replacement. We've done that a couple times with homes that have just gone too far, and then we've gone and demoed those homes and rebuilt them stronger, keeping people in their homes. Further go into more of growth management policies, another issue when it comes to home ownership. We do allow for density bonuses in the medium density residential and high density residential future land uses. Right now, I think you get 15 units to 1, but if you build units at less than 800 square feet or less, you can double that. What does seem to occur to be a bit of an issue is some of the parking constraints, because if you had an 800 square foot home and you had one parking space with 2 people living in it, you might have 2 cars for 1 space, and that could be problematic. The other thing is we do have, so we do allow for density bonuses. We typically see a lot of this within our CRAs, and we can go into a little bit more further conversation with that and how we deal with on-street parking and so forth. But also, your current growth management policy, you have a policy that does talk about underused shopping centers in Martin County, and we allow for an analysis for those shopping centers for the purpose of where you could introduce, I believe, residential units into those shopping centers. I don't believe it's been used, but there is the potential for that currently under growth management policies. And from staff's perspective, maybe we perhaps need to have a discussion with some of these retail center owners as to why maybe they haven't taken advantage of that policy and find out why it maybe has not been beneficial for them to look at that. Maybe that's not a good mix. But those management policies, Mr. Chair, do exist under your growth management policy. Also, we do not have, my understanding is we do not have an area currently in our growth management policy for the tiny home. I'll call it the tiny home movement, or some of these more experimental, or that's probably not the right word, but more of keeping pace with what's currently wanted through the market. Keeping up to those times. We do not have that. I am sure if directed, we could start looking at, as well as trying to formulate some of those policies. But I think the big thing that what in my discussions with a lot of the not-for-profit partners and really residents of Martin County is, and the city of Stuart has been, I would say, the victim in this case. Local governments are no longer able to require developers to build affordable housing under current state statutes. So, Mr. Chair, if you were to sit up here and say, look, developer, you're going to build 20% of your housing as affordable, the state statutes don't allow you to do that. But the state statutes, in my understanding, further go on to say, you as a body will reimburse that developer in perpetuity for the money lost because of that affordable unit. Now, that's my understanding. I'm sure the lawyers they could probably clarify that a little bit more. But that, we saw that with the city of Stuart. They used to have an affordable requirement under their development. It was the state statutes took that power away. Then the city of Stuart just recently tried to limit their program to 80% AMI. So if I were to go back to that table, you'd go to the 80% line, you draw across, that's the income level that they wanted to focus on. The state came back and said, nope, you will use the 120% number and the 140% number as your definitions. So the state has really has started to talk about this. I know later on today you're going to be talking to Mr. Kennedy about your federal and state priorities. There is a lot of talk in Tallahassee as to how to address this issue because it is a statewide issue. But this is probably a big barrier from a traditional legislative way of taking care of affordable housing that probably this body and others will have to have discussions about. Going to the other side of this issue, it comes to rental services. These are the existing services you have. You do have an existing neighborhood stabilization program 1 and 2. The reason you don't have any money next to that program is because we haven't received new monies on that. We simply monitor these grants. You also have a community service block grant or CSBG. COVID, which we got through, I believe, ARPA and CARES at $141,000, that has been fully expended. The community service block grant that's traditional of $85,000, that has been fully expended. The American Rescue Plan Act that this body directed our staff to put towards human services, we have you allocate $100,000 on top of the 141 and the 85. You have approximately, actually, when my last phone call, you have about 41,500 left in that. We've legal, Ms. Elder and I have conferred, and we've worked it so that we think we can address more individuals and tie that COVID link. So you probably have another 45,000 for next year to address next year's problems, on top of the additional Wadowski funds that you'll get. FP&L contributes approximately $120,000 a year to keep the lights on and the air conditioning going. And then our own utilities has a lend a hand program at about $10,000 a year. Both FP&L and lend a hand, those numbers are basically annual averages. I'm sure if we went back to utilities or FP&L and said, hey, we need more money for this, they have in the past given us more allocations upon request. But this is your typical annual values that occur. These are your ARPA-specific programs, American Rescue Plan Act-specific programs. These are the Martin County Human Services. You added $100,000, or you supplemented $100,000 in rent assistance. That matches your approximate annual supplement that you get from the state. So it was really a doubling. You've also contributed, you've allocated $500,000 to Love and Hope in Action, or LaHaya, to construct transitional housing. They are in the process of doing that. That is to take folks who are really in that 0 to, let's say, 30% area medium income, where they need a room and a bed and they need to start a savings to move forward because they can't even afford anything to rent. So that program is moving forward. And then also the Salvation Army, you've contributed $650,000 of ARPA funds and allocated that for, again, their improvement to transitional housing, which really included a generator and building improvements to provide shelter for during the storms and other needs that they had, as well as your money's being used to update their food program to be very similar to the successful model at House of Hope, where it's more of a grocery shopping experience than a here's a bag, you get what you get type of experience. The city of Stuart is working with the Salvation Army on property surrounding the Salvation Army to build townhomes. I also just found out that the Veterans Home Emerald V, I believe it is called, that's kind of a veterans transitional housing, that is also currently for sale at about $2.5 million from what I understand. So the city of Stuart is definitely working with us on this problem. So this slide, I just wanted to kind of point out that Martin County is not alone in these challenges. There is a large and growing gap between income and housing. The 20 largest occupations in the U.S. pay less than the housing wage. Our federal and state programs do not keep pace with the market changes. They typically have historically never done that. However, because the market is more volatile today than it has been in the past, the separation or the delta between what the feds and the state give and what the market asks for has been probably one of its largest gaps ever. Most of our programs do limit individuals to 80% or below AMI. I can go back to that slide to give you an exact number as to what that is. As well as most rental assistance programs will not cover market rent. So if I go back to that table, most of our stuff is capped around, let's say, $1,100 or $1,200 a month. You have market rents for one bedrooms at $2,000, $2,500. We heard one public speaker, I think, say $2,300 for a townhome. Right now in our state, I got this from all of these I got from sources cited in my board item, in case people are wondering, so I'm not making this stuff up. The Florida Housing Coalition does admit that there is not enough affordable housing in Florida, and that close to 2 million low-income Florida households pay more than 30% of their incomes for housing. Now, I was not able to determine whether or not, at this point, I was not able to determine whether or not, from a statewide perspective, what percentage of their income are they spending on their housing? Is it 50? Is it 80? But I did try and use and calculate for Martin County. I went to a couple websites cited in my board item as to what the average two-bedroom rental wage was needed in Martin County, and I calculated it at $28.17. The average hourly wage in Martin County is $31.64, or approximately $65,811 per year, which I believe I got from the U.S. Census. The average rental currently at that rate takes 89% of the average wage in Martin County. So I'm more than happy to off the record do my math because I have my notes, and there was a lot of Excel work going on with that. So this is my last slide. I wanted to use this slide to kind of help maybe some of the conversation for the board as to how to direct staff, because we are seeking my recommended action or desired outcome is to receive direction in my board item. But the first question I know this board was looking at creating an additional task force or committee in lieu of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee.
Let me stop you right there. That was my suggestion at a joint meeting several months ago. Having an opportunity to speak with staff and other members of our community, creating an additional in the building or inside the government committee would require that committee to work within the sunshine, which I don't have a problem with. It could potentially be an overlap of our AHAC, which I also serve on. I think that group would probably be better served as an outside the county government group of interested parties. So unless my colleagues are desperate for it, which I doubt, I would say that I would personally take that off the table as the person that made that suggestion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to point out, I started this item back at the day after the joint meeting, and since then, you've had a not-for-profit coalition kind of grow together, as well as the AHAC, the recognition of AHAC. So, but if you're taking that off the table, thank you very much for that board direction.
What's your next one?
The next one I have is really, I think from staff's perspective, we'd like to know, and I'm guessing it's probably both, but do you want us to focus the majority of our time more on rental assistance or home ownership? Because that takes two different looks at things. When you're talking about rental, you're dealing more with rental subsidy beyond the federal program. And then you do see our counties to the north and south, they have implemented things such as rent control, increased notification control, and those issues have, those ordinances have had their issues. But when you look at home ownership, the more traditional model from a county has been to focus on the capital assets found what I call between the right-of-way lines, which is basically everything from sewer, water, stormwater, on-street parking, sidewalks, and so forth, proximity to services and so forth, excess land. Whereas rental has really been it seems more like a temporary Band-Aid. So I wanted to get some discussion on that, or direction from you all on that. And I can stop there, or we can go into the next one.
Let's stop there for a second. I'm interested to hear from my colleagues, or if they want, starting it off, Commissioner Jenkins.
I personally, and I think I stated this in our last discussion, whenever that meeting was, is home ownership. There is people that will never be homeowners. I get that. But the whole idea of a family actually being able to build wealth through home ownership and having a start in the home ownership realm is really where I would like to focus my attention, not necessarily what somebody else's priorities would be. But I don't know whether this is where I should go off on my...
Not yet.
No? Okay.
That's coming up. I saw it.
All right.
I don't disagree, and I think what's going to happen here is you're really not going to hear right and wrong answers. I believe it's a multi-tiered approach. I think of it as like 1, 2, and 3, and maybe there's a more official version of this. Some people that are homeless, or like you said, the 0 to whatever, like especially we have not-for-profits that are working with that set of the population. That first tier are people that literally need to have a home. Then there's the second tier, which is apartment or rental, apartment, rent a house, tiny home, whatever the case may be. That's that tier. And some people will live very comfortably in that tier for their whole entire lives. And then the third tier of that, which Commissioner Jenkins, it speaks to him, and I appreciate that, is home ownership. It could be a starter home. Yes, I agree that the biggest investment and financial windfall for a family could be potentially investing in a home, living in it for a long time, improving it if that's what needs to be done, and then the American way, selling it at a profit. I recently had that opportunity. I liked it. Okay, so with that in mind, I think that Commissioner Jenkins saying that he believes in home ownership as his focus is perfectly acceptable. We're going to need champions for that. But then there is also going to be folks that are going to champion for the other issues. Commissioner Heatherington.
Oh, I'll just weigh in on that one topic while we're on it. And I certainly agree, and I've always been an advocate of home ownership. I think that you can't single-handedly, in this particular market that we're in at the moment, we've got people that are, single head of households, raising 2 kids, that their rent just went up $900 a month. I don't know how you get them from renting an apartment to home ownership because they can't afford the rental increase that they just had of $900 a month. So it's getting harder and harder. We're going to talk about our legislative priorities. We've got to stop stripping the Zadowski funds and our SHIP funds. I think we're gonna certainly infrastructure, but that should be high on our legislative priorities. This is not a Martin County problem. This is a statewide, nationwide problem, and that should be very high on our focus legislatively. And number 2, in this particular market, even though I agree with the premise of home ownership, I think we're going to have to be a little flexible because we're never going to get to that home ownership if people can't afford their rental increases. And I certainly don't agree with price controls and rent controls. I think the market has to shake out, but I think we need to get all of those SHIP funds that we can and try to make the best use we can. And I do think that rental assistance is going to be necessary in the near-term future.
I agree. Commissioner Smith.
So I was trying to figure out when I would chime in with this comment, and following Stacy's comments, I guess it's the right time to do it. So last week, we had our Florida Association of Counties final policy conference meeting to wrap up what this year's legislative directions, priorities, and so on were going to be. And that's really a sort of a 2-lane process. One are we as Association of Counties, priorities of what are important to counties, and the second lane is what's important to the state of Florida. And sometimes we find ourselves aligning with that, and sometimes we find ourselves defending against that. All that being said, legislative session is coming up, and there was a significant amount of conversation last week relative to the leadership in both houses about an affordable housing, whatever term you want to use for it, style legislation getting passed, worked on this year in Tallahassee. So I wouldn't say it's caution that what I would offer us in terms of the work effort on this. I would just say that the state is going to do something this year. And when I say something, I think more meaningful than in the past. The Sadowski Act has been there for a long time, and it is constantly used as a pool of money to take from and put into other things, other priorities. Something else that is going to consume the legislature this year will be the impacts of Ian, and whether you want to attribute that to storms, whether you want to attribute it to sea level rise, whether you want to attribute it to frequency of storms. What happened on the West Coast is horrible, and they are amazingly resilient in their process of putting themselves back together. But from that, the conversations that we were having this past week were that what happened post-Andrew, 20-some years ago, whenever that was, I guess, is probably likely to, we will see something similar to that coming out of this session. That we will see probably coastal building construction standards change as a result. Interestingly enough, and all of you have probably watched it on TV, it was significantly a flooding high water issue, much more so than, 150, 180 mile an hour windstorm, which did all the damage. But that focused us on, and I know I'm kind of going off topic, but I'm going to bring it back into topic, that
You have a credit.
thank you. That in all likelihood, we are going to see some significant code changes in our building standards, which will lend itself probably into the other priority that's probably going to come out of the session, one of them anyway, which will be the housing discussion. And how those two come together, how they work together, how those, what direction the legislature goes in, we still don't 100% know yet. But I would only share with you that whatever the work product is that comes out of this conversation, Ed, you might very much want to get involved in the legislative side this year on this issue, because it's going to be, I suspect, a full-on conversation. So I only share that with you because I think it's pertinent to what's happening. I would also share with you, following Florida Association of Counties, we had our National Association of Counties meeting this weekend, board meeting, and both workforce training, how to retain, how to keep, how to train, both at the county level, at the national level, and at the employment level is a focus of attention. At our National Association of Counties level, that drops right back into the affordability of housing and workforce housing, and how do we prepare for dealing with the next generation of employees, whether it's county employees or workforce employees. So there's a lot going on legislatively, and all I would share is that we actively follow what the state's doing, because chances are they will preempt us in many ways. As George alluded to already this morning, there are things that we can't do that they have decided for us in place of our decision. So anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stokes, why don't you finish these? I'd like to get to our public comments.
Sure. The last one is well, the next couple here are, I can take head nods, but is the commission interested in having staff talk to commercial and industrial properties about gray lot redevelopment? All this would precipitate in us coming back with a future board item. And then also, I guess from board direction, where we're seeing the most successes in those areas in which the county has invested in sewer, water, stormwater, on-street parking, especially inside of our CRAs or CRA core, because that's where you have those services, and in most cases you have an ability or walkability to those areas where you have services rendered, such as stores. So staff will, if no objections, will have those conversations and also look at those projects that serve for redevelopment within the urban service area. And then finally, we want to come back, staff would like to come back to you for two things. One of the areas of the bright spots that we are seeing nationwide is the establishment of what's relationships with counties or municipalities have with established land trusts. Some of which the county actually has created and runs. Others have been where the county is a voting member on the board, hands over surplus land, and then that land is then run as a land trust to build wealth in the community. So that would be an item that the staff would like to come back, but before we do, we wanted to know if that was something the board was interested in. And then the other bullet point is really any other options we see as a public-private partnership. So with that, I'm just looking to know would you like us to come back with future board items about community land trust?
1 second, sir. Commissioner Smith.
George, unless you've already done this, and maybe you and Ed have, I'm not sure, but I believe Palm Beach County just passed their $200 million affordable housing referendum. I am
Yes, by a lot.
I am sure that they have had I know that they have had years worth of conversation and discussion about what that might look like. And so You have a gentleman sitting in the back of the room that deals with all of the counties in the region. And I assume that you've talked to the Regional Planning Council at length. And whatever we do, I'm sure in our region that there are models that are starting to take shape that are something that we don't have to recreate the wheel or create the wheel, if you will. So if there is to be discussion and moving forward, I would encourage us to work with at least their staff to understand what those models may look like.
I do speak with Mr. Lanahan on a regular basis.
You took a guess.
He could have meant somebody else. Commissioner Hurd, would you like to chime in ahead of time?
Nope.
Okay. To answer your question, Mr. Stokas, before we get to public comment, yes, bring back the items. I'd like to recommend to my colleagues, and with the limited additional power of chair, that we create a permanent conversation that would happen at least every other meeting. You would give us some update of what's happening. Maybe one meeting you'll talk about the establishment of a land trust. Maybe another meeting you'll talk about the what some clever ideas any of us, including the general public, have heard happening elsewhere. Commissioner Smith's exactly right. We do not have to invent all of these solutions. Many of them exist. So with that in mind, I'd like at least every other meeting to have some conversation, a permanent agenda item every other meeting to discuss what's been happening. And then with that, let's begin our public comment. We'd start with Mr. Nick Blunt, followed by Chad Fair. Mr. Blunt, I appreciate, after a long, illustrious career with FPL, you never stopped, and I know you've been a strong advocate in this topic, so we're glad to have your leadership included.
Thanks. Thanks, Commissioner. Nick Blunt. I'm the chair of the board of the Housing Solutions Council and also a member of the county's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I had a comment at the end, and first of all, I appreciate all the comments that have been made. They're in line with the mission and the thinking of our own organization. And I had a closing comment to thank you for bringing this to the forefront, you commissioners, and I want to move that up to the very top because that's so important. I told someone that this is, as a mission of our organization to educate and advocate and develop, there's nothing bigger than to bring this to the forefront from an advocacy standpoint, and so I appreciate your attention to that. Our organization was founded 4 years ago officially, and even before that, we were meeting as a group, as a coalition. We weren't even a nonprofit organization at that time, and we began talking early on to commissioners and staff. And there have been a number of changes that I want to thank the staff and commission for giving attention to over these years. One is some of the developing the RFA process for surplus lands, also addressing some of the incentives that were mentioned earlier today that make affordable housing a possibility, particularly in impact fees and density flexibilities. And so our organization is positioned to assist the commission. We have experience in vetting developers that come into the area that want to build affordable housing. We have been working closely with the Florida Housing Coalition on processes to ensure that if affordable housing is built, that it's going to be not for just a couple of years, that there are measures in place to track what you're paying for rent, and that and we are our organization deals primarily with rent, so that that goes on for years and years, and they're not flipping rental property for profit. And we support the comments that Mr. Stokas has made. It was a good summary of the state of the affordable housing issue here. One thing, though, that it's very important, and he mentioned this, but you keep hearing all these percentages, and when you look at that state definition talking about workforce housing being 140% of AMI, you're talking $112,000, $120,000, and And our organization has never addressed that from the beginning. We've been talking about 30 to 80%, which is in the $30,000 to $60,000 range. So I know I'm out of time, so I've given you a copy of information on our organization as well as a copy of our board of directors.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Chad Fair is next, followed by Alessandro Anzalone. Pastor, welcome.
I'm so glad the congregation doesn't have one of these red, yellow, and green light things in the back of the church. Thank you for the opportunity this morning, and thank you all for your service to the community. I know that as a servant in the community, that doing right isn't always the most popular thing, and that presents its own challenges. In looking at this report, and I got a preview of it the other day, the math behind the report and the data was staggering, to say the least. Being in this community for the last 4 years, serving in a congregation, this is not a community that lives in generosity. We have an extremely generous community in Martin County, and it makes me wonder if it's not really a housing issue, but a heart issue. And we're more interested in protecting what we currently have than sharing it with others. I also serve on the board of Family Promise of Martin County, and hearing the number, hundreds of students within Martin County School District registered as homeless. We drive through the streets and we see the beautiful communities and the beaches and the palm trees, and you think that something like that is not possible. Yet, we have that issue right here in our community. Being in a congregation, you think, well, it doesn't happen in your congregation. Yet, over the past 2 years, we've had 2 members working full-time that have come to the church office and sat down and said, they raised my rent, it nearly doubled, I have no place to go. We also are fortunate to provide a soup kitchen ministry every Sunday within our community. The number of clients that we've served at that soup kitchen over the last 4 years has doubled. The need continues to grow, so I commend each of you for the work that you're doing and having these conversations. I pray that they continue, and to lift up a colleague, the prayer this morning, I think, was particularly on point for this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, very much. Mr. Anzalone, you are next, followed by Dr. Teresa Albizu.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dr. Alessandro Salone from Seward. I will talk about my own experience when moving to Martin County 17 months ago today for a great job opportunity. I was able to find one property to buy in Martin County, not really affordable for most professionals that work in this county. If not, I will be living in another county, same as 80% of my team, and probably your own team here. We lose team members, even internally in where I work, because they live in another county and another opportunities. They are even making less money. It's better to live there money-wise for them. I do appreciate what you do and for considering this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sir, am I allowed to say what organization you're with?
You are.
Thank you. He's with Indian River State College. So when he talks about his team members and things like that, we're talking about the folks that we are desperately trying to keep in our community, create college and secondary education opportunities at a very high level for our students. So it's a domino effect. If he can't employ folks to work on the campuses in our community, the students, the classes are canceled, or they're too large, or those employees can go to other campuses and other colleges where housing opportunities exist. I apologize, please.
No, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Teresa Albizu. I'm the CEO of Safe Space. Here with me is Mrs. Claudia Hood, outreach advocate for Martin County. We're here today because the incidence of domestic violence continues to increase. We recently looked at our data that shows that in Q1 of this fiscal year, as compared to the prior fiscal year, we see a 36% increase in participants in Martin County alone. not to consider the rest of the Treasure Coast. The main problem that we are facing is that domestic violence is highly correlated with the fear of homelessness, and for good reason. Leaving a household fraught with violence, sometimes it's thought over too much, and it's scary for especially the women who have children who are also suffering from financial abuse. 99% of victims of domestic violence in this country also experience financial abuse. Many of these women, regardless of socioeconomic status, I have to tell you, we see women from all walks of life. Women who were in beautiful homes here in Martin County who suddenly come to us and say, I am destitute and I need a place to transition to be able to rebuild my life. So this is not a problem of the poor only. So we work with them to be able to help them find the ways to find alternative transitional housing or permanent housing so that they can live a life that they aspire to, free from violence. And remember that domestic violence is a learned behavior. We must do our very best to remove these children from those households. That's the only way that we will break the multi-generational cycle of domestic violence in this country. So the biggest problem we're having, of course, is how do we get these participants back into some sort of reasonable housing arrangements so that they can continue working and moving forward in life. And in addition to just the basic cost of rent and the basic costs associated with purchasing a home, there are many other issues that are impacting our ability to place them in secure housing because of the criteria required to be able to access that housing, like 3 months of rent payment, even to be able to access even the smallest apartment, which is onerous to someone who has been left destitute with a ruined credit, because the aggressors are very good and savvy about how to ruin women's credit, and not being able to be ready to be able to have that economic empowerment that they need to move forward in life. Claudia, you want to say something else? No.
Yes, one of the things that we see in our participants is the immediate need of housing. Every time we talk to someone, it's where do I go? Who can help me? No savings. Children, they have to move from school districts. They have to take in some place, sometimes they don't want to go. So it's always, one of the main issues is housing for us. Thank you.
And I'd like to echo the comments made prior about workforce housing deficits and the impact on our own workforce to serve this population.
Thank you very much. I believe this says Louise Hubbard. Yes, it does. Ma'am, good morning. We're glad to see you.
Louise Hubbard, Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council for another 29 days. And going after that, we have Coalition for Attainable Homes. And the experience I want to share with you today is that the possibility of magic can happen on a small scale first, so that you then subsequently can move forward a little more easily without so many different points of view. For example, the public partnership, public-private partnership, public-private community philanthropy partnership has been working extremely well for the community that I'm talking about at the moment. We were able to use local governmental money. We were able to use the ERA money. We were able to combine private philanthropy, and we changed 5 or 6 pieces of the zoning code so that at the moment the county did agree to abate or remove impact fees for housing that was workforce housing or for people at or below 50 or 80%. The limitation had to stay on the size of the property and the income of the individual living in it. Without that opportunity, they also were able to add escheatment properties, which you all know probably what that is, so that given that you take the cost of the land out of the project as well, now you're reducing the cost. So we now have built in the last year about 20 units. Now that's not a lot, I give you that, okay? But it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. And essentially what it amounts to is an opportunity to use local philanthropy, local governmental entity, to create workforce housing, which subsequently allows people to develop some kind of wealth to then go forward onto the next step, whatever that is. But you know the wages are not great even in any of these three areas. So that's a possibility to consider a mega championship relationship. But the local governmental entity has also waived a couple of other things that for years have been recommended by AHAC. I've been on this AHAC forever until I'm not allowed to anymore, but that are recommended that don't necessarily work on a large scale. But if you manage it on an individual scale for this property, under these circumstances, for these reasons, it's worked pretty well. 40 units isn't a lot, but it's respectable enough if you need to pay $1,000 a month for rent instead of 2 or 3 and have a full-time job. Basically, it's doable, and I know it's been done because I've been part of it. And I know I can't be part of your AHAC, even though I'd like to. But I think it's something that we would all like to consider as a amalgam and combination of things that need to be considered. And it's not one person's job. It's not the county's job. All by yourself. You are not landlords.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate all your efforts over the years. Our next request to speak form is Mr. Joseph Cooper, followed by Rob Ranieri. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Joseph Cooper, GA Construction Group, Stewart resident. The young lady that preceded me kind of stole my thunder. I think some of the items that she was going to speak to as a general contractor, as a person coming back and trying to do my work where I'm making money, but also trying to create some opportunities, looking at doing a lot of cutting my teeth down in South Florida, looking at how they created some answers to affordable housing situations. I think that you definitely need the input from people who are in the business and who's willing to do, and I'm willing to do. I know Commissioner Campy talked about the in-house committee, but we're now going to bring it outside. I'm offering my services to kind of be a part of the solution to try to create meet this housing need that's all over the country. But we also know that I want to close by saying that we've been trending from a cost of living wage perspective in reverse since the 70s, right? So wages have been stagnated since the 70s, and cost of living has skyrocketed. So part of the problem is that we're not earning enough to meet the need. No matter what, affordable still has to be paid for, right? Through earning income. And so we still have to also address it from that perspective. How do we create better jobs, better wage paying jobs in Martin County so that we can afford, because the cost is the cost sometimes, but we can also, with the young lady preceded, we can offset some of these costs for a builder. You pass that savings on to the end user, the homeowner. I think it's a great approach, and so if we can be open-minded about that, as she stated, I'm willing to put my part in as a builder. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Ranieri, you are next, followed by Mr. Jimmy Smith.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Rob Ranieri, Martin County resident and CEO at House of Hope. First of all, I want to thank you all for having this conversation today and getting the ball rolling on this important topic. Also want to acknowledge Mr. Stokas and Ms. Miller for their willingness to reach out and work with all of us as leadership in the nonprofit community to help each other get our arms around this problem. So one thing I want us to make sure we don't lose sight of when we're talking about the different statistics and earning capacity and hourly wages and everything in Martin County, here's a reality that we face. If you look at the number of people that are low-wage earners in Martin County, and you combine that with what the United Way calls the ALICE population, which is asset limited, income constrained, but employed. And those are people that are literally one bump in the road from spiraling towards homelessness. They don't have substantial savings. A $500 expense could change the very way that they are able to live their lifestyle today. So those two categories of people combined right now in Martin County make up about half of our population. So literally about half of our community is one bump in the road or worse from their economic stability, from their capacity to pay rent or mortgage or whatever it may be. So while homeownership is certainly a wonderful goal and a goal we talk to a lot, to the 7,000 people a month that we serve, it's not realistic today for a majority of those folks. And hopefully it will be in the future as we help them to attain skills and overcome obstacles in education or in health or in job skills. But today, certainly, we need a lot of support in rent. So what I mean by that is all those opportunities that Mr. Stokas outlined, put every tool in your toolbox you can. We need tiny homes. We need an incentive program to get people to commit to accessory dwelling units on their property. We need you all to waive fees, impact fees, water sewer hookups in the right communities, particularly in the CRA neighborhoods, to spur building so that there will be more units in those neighborhoods that become available for rent. Those are the things that are going to keep our workforce here, that are going to help our economy, and don't overlook the effect that this has on our economy. People leaving, those lower wage jobs are remaining open. There's nobody here to do them because they can't afford to stay here. So everything you can do to help us keep our people housed and safe is valuable for our economy. It's certainly valuable for the mental and physical well-being of the people that we're all here to serve. So again, I want to thank you for this conversation today, and I'm looking forward to more of it in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranieri, and I appreciate your leadership as well on pushing this in the community for a long time. Mr. Smith, you are next, followed by Mr. Alfred Miller. Good to see you, my friend.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all. I'm Jimmy Smith for the record, president of NAACP, Martin County Branch, also a small business owner. I want to thank all of y'all for what you're talking about today. It's very, very important. I'm quite sure we all on the same page of that. You mentioned earlier that a lot of people are afraid. I hear that in the courtrooms. I hear that everywhere I go. People are afraid in Martin County about the kind of people that's going to be drawn for low-income housing. And it bothers me, especially when I heard it in court from a prosecutor made a statement about we don't want our county to be like Palm Beach County and Fort Lauderdale County. And I address that issue because I think that we need to adopt a lot of things from other counties. Because Palm Beach County and Fort Lauderdale County, they are having houses, try to prepare houses for low income. And the reason I say that, when you say afraid, I know that a lot of people what we have the most here is gated communities all over. That's all you can hear, building gated community. Nothing against gated community, nothing against wealth. I got no problem against being wealth and all that. But I've been here since the 60s, and your family too, Mr. Jenkins, when there were dirt roads. And the people that really paved the way here in Martin County, a lot of you just moved here and been here 20, 30 years or whatever. But the people that really paved the way here, that worked so hard to help build Martin County, work with their hands and the pineapple field and the landscape, the nursery, all their life helped raise some of you all families that has been successful. Like my mom helped raise George and Jeb Bush. You know, Miss Harris helped raise you. A lot of you inherit a lot of things you don't understand why these people are crippled in situations with houses. Okay, I looked at those older folks that helped pave the way here in Martin County and worked so hard, Jupiter Island and other places, that their income is just about average of $800 a month for Social Security. That's about it. Those when they're still living, that's all they get for working all those years or 50 years in the fields and all those things, and it impact their family as a domino effect. And we have got to the point that it's what I want and nobody else needs. And we are talking about something that's so great here in Martin County, one of the greatest counties in the state of Florida, but we not that great because of where our heart's at. We got people that are fighting against a good opportunity for a company to come in here and give great jobs in Martin County. Like Costco, one of the best paying companies it is with paid vacation, I'm gonna shut up.
Got time?
Okay, and you know, when we look at that, people coming into Martin County want to help. We have contractors got a plan that I would like to present them to you with a plan that we can afford to build these decent houses. Right now, we're rent for a room here in Martin County. It's $175 a week just for a room.
Time is up.
Huh?
Your time's up. But we appreciate you. Got some applause up there. Mr. Miller, welcome. You will, our last request to speak form, unless there's one coming in, there is. Our second last request to speak form. I was trying to hold you off, Mr. Redling, to be our expert witness, but
Before
Ms.
Mr.
Ripper will tell a story as well. So, sir, please, you're recognized.
Good morning, Alfred.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Commissioner Smith.
Mr. Miller, I like the logo on your shirt. We're happy to have lent you the quarterback for the last couple of years.
Right. I think he's a keeper.
You didn't want to go to sleep early last night.
Alfred Miller, and I'm the current president of the board of the Banner Lake Club. And I'm going to be pretty quick in terms of just saying that I commend the commission to make this a priority, the affordable housing. It just impacts so many levels of day-to-day life. I think one of the speakers that came before spoke about homeless students. And we wouldn't have thought that there would ever be a need that there would be homeless students, but there are also homeless students by no result of what they've done. I mean, I think even working families, a lot of them, they can't afford to be able to undertake a lot of these rents in the way that the rents have skyrocketed. I believe there's a statistic out there somewhere that says that most families, or a lot of families, are just about 4 or 5 months away from homelessness if for some reason one of them lost their job. And I heard Commissioner Smith when he said that there are likely some models out there, and I would attest that there are some models out there. We don't have to remake the wheel. Well, we just need to find out what's working and then try to adopt some things that are going to be beneficial here in Martin County. I've worked a lot of years down West Palm. There's a place down there called the Lord's Place. It's great when it comes to transitional housing, and transitional housing can also put a person on the path to home ownership, like I heard said here today. And you have our support from the Banner Lake Hope Sound community, and whatever we can do to assist, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate everything you're doing. Mr. Redling, you're next, followed by Ms. Ripper. And then if there's anyone else, these are my last two, and then we'll take our closed captioning break, and then we'll pick up the conversation after a brief 10-minute break. Sir, welcome. I appreciate everything you've been doing, your organization has been doing.
Thank you. Mike Redling, Executive Director, Habitat for Humanity, Martin County. I guess Vice Chair of the CRA actually applies here as well. I wanted to thank Mr. Stokas, first of all, for the presentation and all the thought that went into it, and the board for continuing this conversation. I was especially happy to hear about the single-family housing, the conversation about single-family housing. I know sometimes it gets looked over, but Habitat for Humanity's built 153 homes in Martin County, all single-family housing. Besides offering the opportunity of generational wealth and providing a platform for children and families to grow and have more successful lives, it also, home ownership also stabilizes communities. And I think when we talk about, affordable housing and things that we have to do, one of the things that we can't overlook is having people move into communities and stay there. A lot of rentals turn into transitional sometimes. It's not great, but from a Habitat perspective, we look at the stability as much as we do the generational wealth. One of the things that I haven't heard today is any sort of idea of what we're dealing with. I mean, other than defining the current situation as a housing crisis, we don't even know what it is. Do we need 300 units? Do we need 3,000 units? Do we need 3 million units? I have no idea. I can sit here all day and give you anecdotal evidence and tell you stories and just talk about people that we encounter on a daily basis, but I don't think that as a community we have a grasp of exactly what we're trying to do. So you're looking at these options in front of you, and a lot of them are great, but, you know, which one is best for what we have? We don't even know what we have right now. The one thing that we do have that's on this list that I think would work is a community land trust. I've seen them work in many other municipalities, big or smaller. They're a great tool for helping to keep houses affordable, whether it's rental or whether it's home ownership. So it's something that I think can be done pretty easily, especially with the county's assistance. And I think that it's something that could actually make an impact right now while we figure out what kind of problem we're dealing with. So thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for the discussion.
Thank you, Mike. Ms. Ripper, you are our final request to speak form before we take our break, unless there's a hand that pops up. Thank you. I'm sure you're going to tell us your organization. I appreciate everything you guys have been doing.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Karen Ripper, President and CEO of the Council on Aging of Martin County at the Kane Center. And I can't thank you all enough for tackling this topic. Our navigators on a daily basis receive phone calls from seniors and their families whose rent has been doubled and don't know what to do. As has been mentioned, I've been listening to the conversation this morning. I'm not going to go on extensively, but when rents are doubled, and you're getting $2,000 a month in Social Security, and I'm glad Jimmy Smith said something about the seniors living less than $1,000 a month. It's just impossible. And without the nonprofit sectors, different organizations in this community, it would not happen. In philanthropy, they would not be able to stay here. So there's a lot of ways to crack this nut, so to speak, but we do have seniors in the county who have homes that, you know, there's all kinds of different solutions that maybe, we have tried it, matching people up, doing background checks and so on, us not being responsible, of course, but there's people that need tenants, and as was said before, we need to see how big the problem is. I know we receive calls, people being kicked out because their rent has been doubled, trying to place people in the Suburban Lodge or whatever hotels we can to get a more stable solution for them is very difficult. But we appreciate you all working on this and staff, and have a great holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ripper. Colleagues, let's do this. Let's take a 10-minute break for closed captioning. We'll come back at a little before 11. Thank you. Okay, we are back from our mid-morning closed captioning break to continue our December 6, 2022 County Commission meeting. We are still in conversation with Departmental Number 3, Affordable Housing Discussion, Essential Housing Discussion. We just took public comment. We've heard some from my colleagues. Mr. Stokes, are you still looking for some direction? If you are, I can give you, at least from my perspective. Rent subsidies, to me, is something that the AHAC has been sort of assisting residents with in the meantime. I think of that more as a sort of a temporary stopgap, because other than giving someone rent subsidies every single month through the term of their lease, it's really meant, as far as I'm concerned, as a help. Rent control, I know that they have some of that happening in Palm Beach and St. Lucie counties. However, I think here we're a smaller county. They are much larger than us. I'm personally not interested in rent control. I agree with Commissioner Hetherington that the free market and the supply and demand, Business 101, can handle some of those under the set of circumstances that we are continuing to address the things that we've heard all morning. If we leave things as they are, it's just going to constrict and constrict. And so those are the two on that from my perspective. Colleagues, anything in terms of rental subsidies? We sort of do that already. I don't know if it needs to be expanded. And rent control is really not my.
Agreed.
Okay, Mr. Stokes?
So, Mr. Chair, maybe to help guide the conversation, I've been taking notes both from your conversation and public comment. This is the direction I understand it to be, is one, I'm to come back to this body monthly, once a month, with an update as to status of projects, and I'll work on some type of format and memo, and we can work on the giving with you. The board is interested primarily on home ownership or building generational wealth, however, still maintaining the temporary process of rental subsidy through the current federal and state programs or any other opportunities that come along with that.
One second, sir.
What did he say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Also, focusing on home ownership through CIP projects that are currently allocated and could be developed in the future. The big thing I had heard, and I know we have another commissioner, working on the county's role as it comes to a community land trust process. I did have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Lanahan briefly at this meeting. I know he's got some ideas, as well as I had a chance to talk with Mr. Schilling and talk about the inclusion, future talks about inclusion of tiny homes or other developments in the housing market that we would bring before this body. So if there's more direction, but I think I understand, if it's okay with the board, I'd like to continue working with Commissioner Jenkins and the Banner Lake folks as to maybe a pilot project for the Community Land Trust and bring that back to you. And I know Commissioner Jenkins will probably want to talk on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Commissioner Smith, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. George, at some point, and again, I mentioned this last time Ed brought this up at our joint meeting. The Regional Planning Council has been working on this issue forever, sort of. And I think one thing, and I think a couple of speakers touched on this morning, I think understanding sort of the capacity of what's really needed and what is the volume of all of the various issues, from the rental side to the home ownership side to the transitional side. So for me, for one, I mean, I'd like to know that we study that component of it some, or at least present us with, here's your challenge, here's what you have in front of you. Because I don't know that we can hand pick out, I like this idea, I like this idea, and I like this idea. I think, for me anyway, it's sort of like building a house. You don't start laying the roof out until you've done the foundation. And even in Martin County, you got to figure out all the drainage before you do all that. So I'd like to kind of see the roadmap some of where we're going. And Tom, I assume there's a fair amount of data out there available to us, both from our neighboring counties and others in the industry that have already worked on this. But for me, it would be very helpful to understand, so that whatever strategy, if that means there's going to be land use discussions, if there's going to be zoning discussions, capacity, where, how, what, you know, if it's 1,000 units of this and 500 of this really solve a problem, then in my mind, I can start figuring out how do we start moving the pieces around to figure out where, how, what, and why. But just to say, I think we ought to start with rental something. For me, I can't start there. I've got to start with the foundation first.
So, Mr. Chair, just so I can clarify in my mind, is the board interested in staff working concurrently with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council and the Florida Housing Council Coalition on some type of study? I don't know the correct names of it, but also at the same time still working with some of these still having other things occur that may not be as policy driven?
Can I tap into that just for a second?
Sure. No, I just want to look.
I think for me, again, this will help a lot, is that the state's going to be doing a lot of deep diving into this, right? I suspect that they're going to figure out 67 counties, 417 cities, what do we do? And what is the direction the state's going to stay? I think we need to be in a position to be able to either defend or argue our position. So that may mean budgeting some money to spend to study some stuff, to have data on a piece of paper that says, here's our needs, and here's where we find ourselves in this state. And so as you're considering what the rules may look like, this is how it's going to impact Martin County because of what exists. Does that make sense? A little? Anyway, that's where I am.
Thank you. Commissioner Heatherington?
I'm wondering if that data is, I mean, I'm not interested in, I think there's so much data out there that
I don't know that we know in Martin County.
how we apply it to Martin County. I think that our time could be certainly well spent up in Tallahassee advocating, because there's, two aspects. One, our hands are tied in so many ways. And two, affordability is two things. Affordability for new homeowners. Okay, so look, my son is going to go to aviation mechanic school in Tampa, and he's already said, look, Mom, I don't know if I'll be able to come back to Martin County. It's too expensive. And I said, you're right, son, you might not. Or you might be living with me for a while. Or two, affordability of people that are already living here. And I hope this is on the legislative priorities. Our legislators are got to be part of this conversation, because insurance is pricing everybody out of their homes, those that will be buying new homes and those that are already living in Martin County. So that should be a high priority if we're, during this legislative session, for us to be up in Tallahassee advocating for these things. I'm just going over my notes. So absent that, the other absent party to the conversation was willing builders of affordable housing. There's got to be, somebody in the private sector that is willing to build affordable housing. They have to be a part of the conversation, because if they're not willing to build it, then we're kind of spinning our wheels. I agree with we shouldn't reinvent the wheel, because, this is a nationwide problem. The other thing I have is accessory dwelling. And this is a very frustrating thing for me, because we've said, I agree, accessory dwelling is a tiny little remedy, and I agree with having that. But when we say that, and things come before us, and they're entitled to have accessory dwellings, and they may be not popular, and they get shot down, that's really frustrating to me. And I'm going to give you an example, because this is really important, that we put our money where our mouth is. And if we're going to talk about accessory dwellings, when a project comes and they're entitled, say a marina, 4 accessory dwellings, and they get kind of convinced into maybe being satisfied with 1, and then we give them 2, they should have had 4. They were entitled to 4, they should have had 4. And if we're going to talk about affordable housing, we've got to keep that in mind when we look at those things. So that's just something to me, that those are tiny little things that we can do every day versus just talking about it once a month. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins?
So I've been working on the community land trust idea for, I don't know, probably close to a year now. That idea started by the board of the Banner Lake Club. They've actually acquired some properties in the Banner Lake community, and we're trying to figure out how to do a legit community land trust. That has then, it kind of floundered for a while because we couldn't get any traction and really get any advice. Since then, this group has met with a number of different other land trusts. They're all different. They're all have different goals and objectives. Recently, and George has been, and Michelle Miller have been in these meetings with these different folks. We recently met, Colleen and myself and George and Sarah Wood and Sebastian and Wendy Reynoso from Banner Lake Club and Mike Redling, and we kind of came up with a path of how we'd like to see a community land trust be put together for Martin County, not just for Banner Lake, but Banner Lake would be you got to start somewhere kind of thing. So the Banner Lake organization, it's kind of under that envelope right now. They want it to be a separate entity. So what we're envisioning, and hopefully can get some support from my fellow commissioners, is to do a 501c3 community land trust that is a private-public partnership that would start in the Hobe Sound area using the assets that have been acquired through philanthropic things through Banner Lake Club. We also own, I believe, George, it's a 4-acre parcel right next to the little park there by Banner Lake that is an opportunity also. So we're now know how we'd like to see this put together. We are working on getting a retired attorney to work some pro bono work to help us with the articles of incorporation and all the necessary documentation to do that, which Sebastian and our legal department would be working with to obviously put the county in its proper position on, and then obviously the commission would be represented as a trustee on this community land trust. So we've got to at least get to that point, and I'd like to continue that effort. We've met with Elizabeth Barbella, which has said that at least in the beginning she would offer some assistance with the accounting end of it. Rob Ranieri has offered to have some of his abilities through House of Hope with screening and all the stuff that would be, not vocalizing this very well, but the necessary steps for applicants to be involved with it. So this is something that I've really dug my teeth into, and I really think it is is the direction I'd like to put my efforts in the whole idea of home ownership, affordability, building wealth, and in my mind, that's what it's all about. Obviously, there's the other things. None of us can do it all, but I would like your support for me to do what I really think I can be beneficial in.
Thank you. We have a couple of lights that have come on, but.
Did that make any sense, George? You want to add anything to that? I just feel like I fumbled through that.
All that's fine, fine, and you could probably turn that into a motion after 2 comments.
Okay.
Commissioner Smith, you were first.
So Harold, I think it's great. Couple of questions, just so the mechanics of it. Do you envision us county being the trust? No. So, and the only reason I asked that, and maybe it's something to look at, and I looked at with George years ago on some other ideas we were looking at. You know, as you were going through that, I'm thinking, okay, so good idea. How do we do it? How do we make sure that the trust stays, that the stability of the trust moves on through time, right? The other thing would be how could we set up a funding mechanism similar to a CRA where you had TIF that could be reinvested or invested into it long-term so that there was the private sector is great, and you have a super supportive community down south that helps do those things. But could we set the trust up in such a way that you create something like TIF, like a CRA, that there was a funding mechanism to keep building upon it long-term? And I don't know what that involvement looks like, but
Mr. Smith, Commissioner Smith, may I stop you there? The goal here today is to bring this conversation back. We are up against some hard stop times for today.
I understand,
So
but this is
I
the
wanna-
only time we get to talk to each other.
No, I get it.
And so I can't
What
go to
I'm
Harold's
asking-
office and say, Harold, I got 5 really good ideas. Can you think about these? So here I am.
Correct.
And
This is coming back as an agenda item.
right, and so can I finish just one more second?
You're the one that's got a hard stop. Keep going.
I do. So I'm throwing these out there so that George, when he comes back, and Harold, when he comes back, you can explore the ideas and tell me why that's a bad idea, good idea, or if there's a model out there to investigate, what other ideas can you give us that can help Harold achieve what he's trying to do? Sorry.
That's okay. Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, give me some examples of what the public's contribution is. I understand the private contributions, but what kind of expectations do you have for the public's contribution?
For the land trust? Okay, so what we've talked about thus far is not a financial obligation from the county. The county's involvement, but being a vested, interested party that is in control of the trust, would be excess properties, which we have, not only in Hope Sound, not only in Hope Sound, but in Port Salerno and Palm City and such as this. But the most important part of the obligation to the county is having the county, being a public-private partnership, from what I understand, the county has much more ability for grant opportunities than a private entity. So at this point, I didn't even go down the road, or I haven't even been going down the road of thinking about TIF and using taxpayer money for this. In South County at least, and I think once we prove that we can be successful, it can be countywide, but we have an enormous amount of people that have the ability that recognize the issue, that are willing to stroke a check. I really do, and a lot of the people that are actually sitting on this kind of, I don't know what you call it, it's not really a formal board at this point, but a group of folks are big time, and they're really into it. And we can at least get it off the ground in Banner Lake, expand it to Petway in the South County area, and then let it evolve into something that can be a countywide opportunity.
It sounds like we're having the agenda item that we will be having in the future. Commissioner Smith.
He tripped up just a thought of that. So years ago, when Indiantown, Indiantown incorporating, there were a lot of roadblocks for them getting CDBG money and other things because they weren't a governmental agency. And when you just said about the grant side and other funds that might be able to be applied, I think, George, something to explore in the land trust thing. Do we need to play a more significant role in that to qualify for things down the road that otherwise just a land trust that was a private trust wouldn't be able to do that a government could? And Harold, I don't know if that's of interest or not. Thinking all those things through, I think would be helpful for the next agenda item.
Could I give you a suggestion of a motion?
Sure, please, yeah.
That we request of staff to, obviously, you see the support of, at least a majority of the support of the board, to move forward with a much more vetted-out conversation, bringing in the stakeholders, allow Commissioner Jenkins to bring in some of the people he's been working with. I think that the concept of starting it down where he's already begun and letting that show us that that's a legitimate example is the right way to go.
I'd like to make that motion that Mr. Campy just,
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Jenkins, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Just a quick comment.
Yes.
I thought of this because speaking of private money, I had an opportunity to tour Elevate Hope in District 4, and it was pretty remarkable, the things they're doing with transitional housing. So, all with private money. So, and there's so many great organizations that came and spoke this morning, but I just, within the last week, had an opportunity to tour that. So I commend them with what they're doing with all private funding.
Thank you. So that we can put a bow on this, just a couple of quick points based on some of the comments that we heard. We have to, if my colleagues, it looks like they didn't disagree that we could have this conversation monthly, at least one of the meetings each month, because it's too big for us to try to boil it all down and discuss it right this moment. But that being said, I'd like to say that tiny homes, if some people are not familiar with that process, all you have to do is Google it or go on YouTube and see what they are. It's happening everywhere. It's not new. It's been out for a long time. I would equate the tiny home as a modern version of what back in the day was a mobile home or a trailer or a manufactured home. It's what some people are. They're a little more, it's not all uniformed. They're terrific. Developing projects in partnership with employers. I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Singh, the president of the hospital of Cleveland Clinic Martin, and they have hired over 600 people in his tenure, and they have nowhere to live. They've had opportunities that they put job opportunities, proposals out to people that they would very much have liked to hire. They could not because the people couldn't come here, including Dr. Singh himself. And we heard from Mr. Anzalone from IRSC. We're not talking about people that are struggling financially. We're talking about the top of our community also finding it difficult for places to live. There was something I heard on the radio where communities are hiring private developers, because I still strongly believe the government should not be in the building business. We should be in the facilitation business. There was a community that built a housing unit right next to a public park so they didn't have to do all of the amenities that would be required of the housing unit. And then the local hospital and large employers committed to 10, 15, 20 of the units that they would be responsible for renting those units and then giving them to their employees. The Cleveland Clinic, as I mentioned, I also had a meeting, and I think my colleagues did or will, with Willis Boat Works, a new employer here in Martin County, took over in the beginning of this year. They've doubled their workforce. The leadership there went around and asked all of their employees, from people that are buffing boats to their executives, what their major issue was. It's housing. Large employers like country clubs, many places in the United States, country clubs have their own dormitory employee housing facilities on their own property for their own employees. Because what they have been doing in the meantime is going into our community and getting first come, first served to rent every unit that they can get their hands on for their own employees, leaving no one else the opportunity to do that. The concept that the old days where Martin County residents could say, well, we don't need you here, go to Port St. Lucie, let our workforce and our employees live in Port St. Lucie, that's over, because Port St. Lucie and the St. Lucie County, their school district is top-rated, and they're as expensive as it is anywhere else to live. Traffic is a big issue for a lot of people. We're hearing it now that we're starting to head into season where there's this unbelievable amount of traffic. I would tell you that a majority of this traffic are people, employees that are traveling in and out of our community every single day to go back to where they live, but they work here. So all in Martin, in Palm City by the Turnpike and Citrus, or on Murphy in Palm City, and I'm sure it's happening in your districts. Those are people commuting in and out of the community. If they lived here, we would knock some of that traffic down. Not-for-profits, Commissioner Hetherington said it before she choked to death, that we can't expect the not-for-profits. Many of the larger ones spoke today, but even the grassroots ones like Elevate Hope and LaHaya and these other organizations, and the big ones like the United Way and House of Hope and the the Salvation Army, they're all in the housing solution business as well. But we can't, as the government, expect them to just completely handle the full burden. Interest rates. We started this conversation in the spring, and interest rates were like 3%, and now they're 7%. I've been hearing from folks, even in our own community, that put deposits down. Can you imagine putting down a $20,000, $25,000 deposit on your future home that's being built or that you're trying to purchase, only to have the interest rates skyrocket within a short period of time? Now, when you do your math on how much will this house cost us per month on a mortgage, because you weren't able to lock your mortgage rate in so far ahead of time, you're losing your deposit because your down payment, because you realize you can't afford the house anymore. The other thing is that this is not a struggling financial issue. There will be members of our community that think this is not their problem. This is for the people that don't know how to get the proper job or didn't educate themselves properly. It's a struggling financial segment, it's the working class segment, and it's professionals. This morning, people came forward and told us, you could be a professional making over $100,000 a year. If there is no house for you, there is no house for you. And the last thing I would say before we wrap this up is we have to speak about respect for the resident and respect for the existing community. We're not talking, I know some people will hear about this conversation, and the quote will be when someone said that we're looking to build 3 million homes. We're not. And I think that the low-hanging fruit of this conversation is the next thing we hear from you, Mr. Stokas, are the apparent things, the non-controversial things, the things that we can get started. Commissioner Smith's idea of using the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, they are an excellent organization. We're fortunate to have them in our community, but I don't know personally if we need them for the beginning of this. Maybe they get into the portions that our grassroots organizations, our volunteers, our stakeholders, that's not in their wheelhouse. It is in Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council's wheelhouse. I would make that a 6 month from now conversation. And if there's anything else from my colleagues or staff, I would leave it at that. I appreciate the folks that came this morning to participate. We'll keep, you remember I said about the Starfish Initiative? There was a woman this morning, Louise, you were saying, hey, we're only building 20, and I don't know what kind of an impact it would have. My starfish analogy is the man walking on the beach sees someone throwing things in the water, goes up closer, he realizes the little boy is throwing starfish into this ocean, and he says, well, there's 1,000 starfish on the beach, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it, and you're not going to be able to make a difference. And the kid throws one into the water and says, I made a difference for that one. And that's what I think this issue has to be. We can't assume that it is so large that we shouldn't take it on.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add one other thing. I want to thank all the other county departments. I mean, I'm getting a lot of credit, but really, it takes a lot of people to make me look good. Everyone from legal to CRA to, Paul Schilling, Growth Management, Communications.
Don't start naming people, you're going to get in trouble.
No, I will. But I also want to thank all the not-for-profits for taking the time to meet with us. And I have clear direction, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Everybody, we're moving on to our next agenda item, public hearing number 1, public hearing to adopt a notice of intent resolution required by Section 197.3632, Florida statutes for special assessments. It'll be presented by Mr. Phil Keithley, and he's got a new member of our team with him, and he's going to throw directly right into the fire.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I'd like to introduce to you, if you haven't already met, Mr. David Duncan, one of our project managers, and he'll be making this presentation today.
Love the donuts.
Good morning. For the record, David Duncan, Project Manager with the Utilities and Solid Waste Department. This is a public hearing to adopt a non-binding resolution declaring the board's intent to use uniform method of collection for non-ad valorem assessments for a proposed series of special assessments that may be imposed within certain municipal service benefit units to be established for road paving, ancillary drainage, dredging services, stormwater services and facilities, and water and/or wastewater projects. Section 197.3632 Florida statute requires that the county hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution of intent to use for the informed method of collection for any assessment program in the calendar year prior to any such collection. The resolution, which does not obligate the county either to use the uniform method of collection or to impose any one special assessment, must be adopted by January 1st, 2023, and sent to the tax collector, the property appraiser, and the Department of Revenue by January 10th, 2023. Additionally, Section 197.3632 requires that the notice of the public hearing to adopt the resolution of intent be published for 4 consecutive weeks immediately preceding the date of the hearing. The notice of intent was properly advertised, and the affidavit of publication of the notice of intent will be part of the resolution. The notice of intent allows the county to meet its statutory service requirements necessary to use the uniform collection method. The resolution to be adopted today is a non-binding, and the board may reduce the geographic area covered by any future assessment or decide not to impose any special assessment at a later date. By adopting the resolution, the board is simply preserving the right to use the uniform collection method beginning in November 2023 for the projects implemented prior to such date. Staff's recommendation is for the board to accept the public comment and adopt the resolution of intent to use the uniform method of collection for non-ad valorem assessments. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. You did an excellent job, Mr. Duncan. Welcome to the team. Commissioner Smith.
Pending public comment, move approval.
Second.
That's what I like to hear. Any public comment, anyone looking to address us on this topic? You did such a good job. We're just speeding right through. We have a motion by Commissioner Smith for staff's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. They're not all going to be that easy, but good for you. Our next agenda item is a public hearing quasi-judicial number 1. Request for a zoning district change by Land America 225 LLC, C145-016. It's going to be presented by Mr. Brian Elam. Elam, I was going to say Elam, but Mr. Elam, welcome. You are recognized, sir. But before we do that, it's a quasi-judicial. Anyone that will be offering testimony, please stand to be sworn in.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, do you have any any ex parte?
If I do, they're filed.
Thank you. Commissioner Hetherington.
If any, they're filed.
Commissioner Jenkins.
If any, they're filed.
Commissioner Hurd.
I don't have any, and they've been filed.
I don't have any, and that's been filed as well. Are there any interveners?
No interveners.
Do you have a copy of your work history and the agenda item? Do we require any return receipts for this? And if so, do you have them, ma'am? If you could come forward to the mic, state your name and tell us if you've been sworn in and explain about return receipts.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Erica Beitler with HJA. I don't recall having return receipts. I did in the LPA give you the original copy.
Correct. They were given at the LPA meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Elam, you are recognized.
Morning, Commissioners. For the record, Brian Elam, Senior Planner with Growth Management. A copy of the agenda item and my work history have been provided. This is a request for a mandatory rezoning by Land America 225 LLC. Parcel of land is approximately 11.1 acres. It's located at 450 Southeast Parrott Circle in Stewart, and included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities exemption. The proposed amendment is to change the existing zoning district classification from A-1A Agricultural District to RS-3 Low-Density Residential District on approximately 2.83 acre section of the 11.83 acre site. That would be just the A1A portion here. Future land use for the property is commercial general and low density. for Martin County's Comprehensive Growth Management Plan Future Land Use Map. The A1A Agricultural District is approximately 2.83 acres and is a Category C district that is not consistent with the low-density future land use. Therefore, this request to rezone is considered mandatory. There are 6 standard Category A zoning districts available to implement low density. That's RS3, RS4, RS5, RM3, RM4, and RM5 low-density residential districts. And PUD zoning is also an option. These are the development standards for the existing and the proposed zoning districts. The applicant chose the most restrictive zoning district for this rezoning, mandatory rezoning. So staff has concluded that the request for RS-3 low-density residential district is an appropriate zoning district with respect to our land development regulations, comp plan, and our county codes, and we recommend the board move to receive and file the agenda item and the staff report as Exhibit 1 and approve the request to rezone from A1A Agricultural District to RS-3 Low-Density Residential District. This item went before the LPA, where it was voted 4-0 for approval of staff recommendation. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Elam? Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm looking at both aerials and future land use maps. And it appears that this property is, has a future land use that is unlike any future land use around it. Looks like it's spot land using. When was this parcel given the community commercial land use?
I think this is general, commercial general.
Mr. Elam, can you speak up a little bit, please? It's hard to hear.
On page 434, it looks like it's CC. So I need that clarification and also clarification about why this spot land using exists, and also the site of the proposed change on page 424 looks like it's completely wet.
Okay, so this had an approved, was a master site plan previously.
Good morning, Commissioners. Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director. This is simply a rezoning to make the zoning consistent with the land use. Pardon me. It's a previously approved site plan, so it's clean up.
Is it community commercial or is it general commercial, and when did it receive that designation?
I believe it received that when,
2007.
yeah.
So presumably in 2007, it was also,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
okay.
Anything further?
So up until 2007, it was residential, just like every other parcel that surrounds it.
It may have
Perhaps it
been
was-
commercial general.
It's commercial, general, future land use, and the zoning is community commercial. I only went back into the point in time where it had a previous site plan approval, and I don't know when they changed it to CC, but I only went back to the point in time where we started from an approved site plan approval, which was for an RV park, and the A1A had existed back then. Since they want a site plan per article, per the comp plan, they have to rezone to the best appropriate zoning district for the land use. And so that particular piece of land there, this is really administrative because that piece of land is under a conservation easement. There's a PAMP that surrounds quite a bit of this property. And that entire piece that we're rezoning, that they're rezoning here is under that PAMP.
Okay.
Thank you. Applicant's representative, do you have a presentation that you need to make, or are you?
No, hi, again, Erica Beitler for the record. I did swear in. Thank you for the good presentation. He pretty much covered all the information that I wanted to say. This is the most restrictive zoning that is mandatory rezoning based on a application that will be coming for you in the future. But we're really just focused on that sliver right now, which is a conservation easement. It's going to be maintained that. And this is the request from staff, so we are just doing what we're told and just asking for your approval on this.
Thank you very much. Questions for the applicant?
Pending public comment, I'll move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Anyone in the public looking to address us on this topic? Now's your turn. Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Heatherington to accept staff's recommendation of approval, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
The motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you as well. Our next agenda item is Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval. There are 3 of them. They will be presented this morning by Ms. Jennifer Manning. Ms. Manning, welcome. You are recognized.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Manning, Budget Director. The first item on the agenda is permission to accept the FY23 mosquito control agreement through the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. This is a grant amount for $78,578.57. Those funds will be used to offset the chemical purchases for arthropod control. The second item is permission to accept a resolution to increase the Martin Metropolitan Planning Organization budget for the regional long-range transportation plan. Martin County has a lead for that project, and we're getting a contribution of $20,000 each from St. Lucie County and Indian River County. Final item is permission the sheriff is requesting funding from the Law Enforcement Trust Fund in the amount of $18,184.71. He used those funding for crime prevention programs such as drug treatment, drug abuse education, drug prevention, and crime prevention. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Mr. Chair, move approval of Ms. Manning's item.
Thank you. Anyone from the public looking to address us on what Ms. Manning just presented? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith for staff's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Mr. James Kennedy, you're batting cleanup today. We have an agenda item which is departmental number 4, the 2023 state and federal legislative programs update and presentation. Mr. Kennedy, welcome. I see you have some help with you there. Both of you looking very sharply dressed. Appreciate that.
Brought the big guns today, Chairman.
That's right.
His wingman. Chairman, Commissioners, James Kennedy. I am the Legislative Coordinator for Martin County.
And I'm John Mayle, Ecosystem Division Manager, as I said, playing wingman.
I want to start off, talk about the makeup, our state delegation this year. So due to redistricting, some renumbering going on, District 86 is going to be served by Representative Snyder, who's going to have the honor of being the Deputy Majority Floor Leader this year. I think that's very big news for Martin County. Also, District 85 is going to be Representative Toby Overdorf, who will be the Vice Chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House. And then yesterday, it was appointed that Senator Harrell is going to be the chair of the Appropriations Committee on Health and Human Services. And then Congressman Mass, we will not know we will not know committee placement for a month or so, but due to redistricting, he was District 18. Now it's District 21, and and basically the district is essentially the same. Wanted to talk about pre-session dates. Session's going to be starting for Florida, March 7th. There's going to be 7 weeks prior to that, starting next week, leading up into the middle of February. So there will be session all through that. And then session will commence on May 5th, so about 2 months there. Also wanted to talk about the new Senate, President Pasadomo and Speaker Paul Renner. So the Senate President, as you guys are talking a little bit about affordable housing earlier this morning, the Senate President's main priority is addressing that very issue, making sure that the Housing Trust Fund, such as the Sandowski Trust Fund, is not swept, which was mentioned. So that's something that's very, very important for the new Senate leadership. I think all of you are just getting some handouts. I mistakenly left off a chapter under the policy positions in the state legislative program, that 10-page document, which is relating to housing. It's going to be titled the Human Services and Public Safety part of that. That was supposed to be in there and just made the mistake of it not. So once the time is permissible and appropriate, if we could have a motion to amend to allow the human services and public safety so we can advocate for housing issues and et cetera. Wanted to dive into our 4 appropriations that we're going to be submitting. The first item is going to be the old Palm City septic to sewer. We're going to be asking for $10 million. At the moment, we also are waiting on a DEP wastewater grant as well. We are expecting to hear in about 2 to 3 weeks. I think it's favorable that we might actually receive that through the grant portal, and then we would not need to ask the legislature for that funding amount. And then we can go and advocate for the other septic to sewer as well, which might make it easier, which is $8 million for the Coral Garden septic to sewer, which was a ask from the 2022 session as well, and we're coming back in 2023 to ask that as well. Both of these items is part of the Connect to Protect Martin program, something that the board has decided to be an initiative for about 3 to 4 years now. So we're pushing that, and I believe this is the 5th year that the septic to sewer is going to be an ask from Martin County. So 5 years in a row, we're showing how important septic to sewer is to Martin County and its residents. Item number 2 for appropriations is the South County Bridge. So that was the only bridge in the entire county that FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation, named as being deficient. So we're going to ask for $3 million with a $3 million match for that for complete construction. Should be shovel ready in the upcoming months. Programming is finishing up. So it's going to be a construction of a new bridge. It's going to be wider. Instead of having currently, there's 2 separate bridges. There's a bridge where traffic goes through, and then pedestrian traffic goes to the bridge right next to it. And so this bridge is going to have pedestrian traffic and vehicles on the same bridge. The last item that we will be requesting is for $600,000 for the East Fork Creek Phase 2, which will be for construction of an STA. This was something that was approved by the legislature in this newly program called the Local Support Grant Program. Unfortunately, the executive branch decided not to go through with the funding for all of these programs. It's $175 million. And they decided not to go through with that, so we will be asking the legislature as an appropriation item to go through with item number 4 there. Just wanted to also speak on our federal appropriation as well. So we have a federal appropriation for $750,000 for the backup generator for the 911 dispatch center. That's something that we're very favorable with, thanks to Congressman Master getting that in there. We are hoping that by the end of the year, that appropriation item will be in the final version of the budget. December 16th is when Congress is going to have to decide to pass a continuing resolution moving forward, which by all accounts, it seems like they will be for December 16th, but possibly that will only be for about a week or two till December 23rd. Anyway, that's a possibility of what might happen, and we might be able to get that appropriation item for 2022. Also, the Republican Party has decided moving forward for 23 and 24 to allow earmarks and line items in the federal budget. So that means the board, we can decide to go in 23 to submit appropriation requests for the federal budget. I would also like to just touch on some very important things historically to the board, and moving forward is WRDA and SERP, the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, which is currently in WRDA. Right now, that language that's in WRDA is currently in what's called the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. It looks like that bill may be passing either this week or possibly next week. Currently, there is no session scheduled for the week of the 21st, but it's a possibility that they need to reassess, that they will do so. Another item that we've been following for at least 5 to 6 years is the coral reef language. Thanks to Senator Marco Rubio for putting that forward. It's called the Restoring Resilient Reefs Act. We supported that this year. We'll support it 23 and 24 going forward if need to. And that language is also currently in the NDAA as well.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, just to tag onto that really quick, I mean, it's our hope, we have unanimous support in our Florida delegation, which is the first time in a long time on a bill that has unanimous support. And also just a call out to Hawaii. I've worked very closely with one of their commissioners who's now a state senator out there, but their delegation has been extremely helpful behind the scenes, working with Senator Rubio's office to try to get this thing done in the time that we hope to get it done. So there's a lot of people plugging away, but it's a great opportunity to get it done. If not, we have to start all over again come the new Congress. So thank you, James.
Yes, that is correct. And hopefully we will know a little more about this within the next week or two, expecting to hear something about that.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, if earmarks are allowed, what earmarks are we asking for?
For the federal government at the moment, we are not asking for anything. The Republican Party just decided this about a week ago or so. So we can certainly do that in the future and reconvene. We have till April or so to come together and decide exactly what's important.
Commissioner, typically our earmarks are related to projects that we are a local sponsor of. The 4 Mile Beach project or the inlet are predominantly, unless there are other specific appropriations that we may have a specific need for. But typically our earmarks are something that we already have a partnership with the federal government on.
Okay. And also, you said that the top state legislative priority, which is $10 million for Old Palm City, that we might be receiving a DEP grant. So what's our backup for this $10 million request?
So the backup is this $10 million request as an appropriation. So if we do not hypothetically receive the DEP grant, our backup would be this $10 million request.
So what I'm asking is, if we do receive the DEP grant, then what's the substitution for this request?
There would not be a substitution. We would focus on the $8 million ask for the Coral Garden septic to sewer, unless if the board would like to add a additional item to that.
I know that we have other projects under design, so we need to take advantage of every opportunity that we have in order to get matching dollars, because these projects are so crazy expensive. I mean, that's what we've seen particularly with the Old Palm City bids.
And Commissioner, one thing that we're starting to see, we don't know if the trend is going to continue, and that is for septic sewer. It may roll more into an appropriations through the DEP and the grant program, much like our beach program is. And so the individual appropriation requests through the process we've done in the past, we're anticipating that that may be going away, provided the state continues to fund the DEP at significant levels of $100 million or more per year into that program. We're not likely to see the individual appropriation projects in the future.
I would also add, it's possible, Commissioner, that the funding wouldn't necessarily be yes or no. It might be a portion of that application that gets funded, and then we would have to kind of retool depending on the amount that's needed.
Thanks.
And just to wrap up a little bit, we're going to continue to do what we've always been doing with securing state grants as it pertains to water quality, as we mentioned previously, with septic to sewer, beach nourishment projects, and the historical preservation grants as well. So that concludes my presentation. I am asking, the staff is asking the board to accept the proposed federal legislative program as well as the state legislative program with the addition of the Human Services and Public Safety language being attached to the state legislative program.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
I move approval of both the federal, state, and the addition of the Human Services and Public Safety language to our program for this year.
I appreciate that. Mr. Kennedy, excellent job. I appreciate your efforts. I know you've been working hard in putting this together, a meeting with all of us, trying to narrow all of the different requests into a cohesive and concise document. You did an excellent job. Mr. Mail, thanks for being the wingman. Commissioner Smith has made a motion to accept your recommendation, including the additional language. It was seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you to the both of you and all the people that helped you behind the scenes. Commissioner Smith.
Final comment before they get up out of their seat. Just an additional thank you to both our Association of Counties for including our language relative to Coral and relative to our water policy issues in our platform for this year, as well as NACO. And NACO, I reached out both this weekend and communication with them to make sure that everything that we all can do to get that coral reef bill passed this year happens. So that's happening, and I think we will also see some significant movement on statewide water policy for all things water this year. Thank you.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our agenda, and so it's not 5:05, it's just about noon. I take any public comment at this time. Seeing none, we will start with you, Commissioner.
I'm set.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I'm also good.
Commissioner Smith, you want to reiterate what you said this morning about tonight's events?
Taste of Jensen tonight, downtown Jensen. Don't know if there's any tickets left, but if there are, stop on down. You'll have a really fun time tonight.
But you're also lighting your tree, correct?
We are also doing the tree lighting this evening.
Any singing?
I will not be, but there will be.
You have Jubilate, right?
We will have Ubalate coming.
Ubalate.
As we have done in years past, and I believe that we have Mayor Ostrand from Ocean Breeze doing our lighting.
Terrific. Two things happening in Palm City. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, December 7th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., the Palm City Chamber of Commerce is putting on their second annual sort of Winterfest. There'll be vendors for not really last minute, but holiday gifts, music, decorations, and displays. There will be food options. There'll be events for the kids. And the big guy who wears a red suit and his wife will be there. And then finally, I'd like to take a personal note to say congratulations to Nikki Norton, who also tomorrow evening will be sworn in as the Treasure Coast Building Association's first female president. So we congratulate her very much. She's, an important person in our community, and she's very active and busy, and this will be a new opportunity for her. So good for the TCBA and good for Ms. Norton. Commissioner Smith, this is New Light?
One follow thing. Also, we highlighted this year a new thing that the NACO president last year took on. It was Light Up the County or whatever green for veterans awareness. There were some amazing, successful, stunningly beautiful jobs done across the country, and hopefully next year we can join in and maybe do the Roosevelt Bridge or something, lighting it up green. But it was, if you go on their website and check out what they did, it was really remarkable what some counties put forth.
We could try to do that all over the county.
Yep.
Excellent cause. Our next commission meeting is next Tuesday, December 13th. Mr. Donaldson, you will have the final word.
Just the two things. One, on the legislative, just as a heads up, if the legislature does take up mobility fees or impact fees, that's something that we'll discuss with you. It's we have an opposite position of some of the cities, so we may need to get involved in that. And then earlier today, when I mentioned the Fitch rating, I'm not sure if I mentioned Sam Emerson, our director. I just want to make sure, Sam, yes, you're recognized as of leading a great team in that. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will see you all next Tuesday.